Welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm Gary Crosby. I'm delighted to say that today I'm joined by James Krappe. He is the MD of ReallySocial.Media agency in Peterborough. James, thanks for spending some time with me today.
No problem. Yeah, thanks very much for having me, Gary. Look forward to it.
Yeah, so am I. So am I. Lessons to be learned from your journey in business. What, really nearly 9 years now as the owner?
Yeah, it is 9 years, crazily, actually. Yeah.
Surprised. Yeah. So obviously I was doing a bit of research beforehand and I saw on your website, it says ReallySocial isn't like any other social media agency. So tell me a bit about what you do and what makes it different.
Yeah, good question. So we are a hospitality marketing agency. But what we really wanted to do differently was there's, hundreds of freelancers out there, hundreds of agencies out there. So we really invested in a technology platform. So we're actually an agency and an app. So we have a full software platform that our clients use.
Yeah.
But really the reasoning behind that was we wanted to offer the highest possible level of marketing services to all sorts of independent restaurants, hotels, who traditionally might not be able to afford to pay, thousands and thousands for a big retainer for marketing services. So what we did was we looked at, what are all the key value add areas that a restaurant needs, and which ones of those can we automate and streamline in the background so that we can deliver a very high level service for a much more competitive price point because we've taken out a lot of kind of the manual work. So really, we want independent restaurants to have the same marketing level tools as the big national chains, and that's kind of very much how we've structured things.
And give me an idea of the sort of breadth of your clientele. How many what sort of size companies are you working with?
Yeah, so it is a whole mix. When we work with sort of hundreds of independent type restaurants, so your typical, Indian, Italian pubs, those kind of businesses. But we've also got some, very large kind of corporate hotels, larger restaurant groups. So yeah, it is a whole mix within the hospitality sector across everything from, takeaway to, Michelin star fine dining and kind of everything in between.
And tell me a bit more about the app, because I know you've invested very heavily in that. From the user's perspective, what do I get? What do I see if I use your platform?
Absolutely. So, I mean, your typical restaurant owner, particularly on an independent, business, is incredibly busy. They're often the chef or the front of house, so they haven't got time to be spending hours and hours doing all their marketing. So our end goal is to have an app that actually completely markets your business for you. So the owner actually has to do nothing. So we haven't quite got to that point yet. Hence, we've sort of been building the software product, but we are getting closer and closer to that every month. So really the idea is the restaurant owner goes on the app, they can see all the campaigns that we've produced for them. And with literally one click, they can approve it. We know it's okay. And then our teams can go out and kind of execute that campaign for them. So it's a very simple way of them being able to have kind of full control of their business and their marketing, but we do absolutely everything for them.
And my clients, when they commonly talk about two challenges that they've got in this kind of space, and the first one is that they try something in marketing and then someone tells them that the algorithms have changed and what they were doing doesn't work anymore. So that's always the first one.
Every week we say. Yeah.
yeah. And then the second one is that, they hire people to do marketing for them. And the first call they get is, well, send me the pictures, send me the content. And they feel like, well, if I'm going to have to do all of that and put that all together, I might as well just do it myself. How do you cope with those challenges for end users?
Yeah, both very valid questions. And I think that was a lot of us investing in this technology platform, was to make it as painless and as simple as possible to have that authentic content. Like you say, you do need the real pictures, the video clips, that kind of thing to produce great campaigns. But if an owner is just going to go out there and, film tons of stuff themselves, then as you say, why would they not just post it themselves? So we've built a lot of tools to make it very simple for them to send us specific images that we might need for a particular campaign. But really a lot of the value that we add is, taking a picture is obviously very important, but a lot of the time it's the thought behind what they need. So our teams will come up with the campaign, this is what we're going to promote. This is why we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We need this picture for that. So I think for us, taking the photos is absolutely key in terms of we need it, but it's not the real value add. The value add is coming up with the campaign and then executing it behind the scenes to make sure, it is reaching everyone within a 5 mile radius. It is getting people sign up for the offer. It is getting table bookings, kind of whatever that might be. So, a photo on asset is important, but it's sort of a smaller piece of the jigsaw, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. Anything that makes their life, more simple and allows them to be consistent has got to be a good thing, right?
That's our goal. Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah.
So let's go back to 9 years ago. And I know that, doing my research yesterday, I saw you've spent time in recruitment and printing and music and things like that. There must have been a moment where you thought, you know what, I'm going to start a business. Tell me about that. What was the spark there?
Did you know what? It probably stems back. So I graduated from university and was working for a recruitment company in Leeds. Really great job. Enjoyed the work and the contacts and the people I was talking to.
Yeah.
But actually, it was based in Leeds, and we were doing financial services, kind of investment banking recruitment. So all of my clients were in London, and so essentially, it was kind of like working in a call center, which having amazing conversations with high level people. But I'm very much a people person. I love going out, building relationships. And I'd always had kind of at the time sort of a nightlife interest, as it were. I was the sixth form president at school, and we booked out nightclubs for fundraisers to raise money for the school prom at the end of the year. Then at university, I got involved in some nightclub stuff. And so, much to my parents' dismay, I turned down a very good graduate job at the time and said, Mum, I'm moving home and I want to set up a nightclub promotion company.
Wow.
So did that for a few years and, had a great fun, did well. But after a few years, kind of the novelty of staying out till 5 a.m, 4 nights a week kind of wears off a little bit after a while. And it was at that time that Facebook really started pushing their ad platform, and Facebook and social media really became a big tool. And so with the nightclub promotion, we went from all the traditional marketing, flyers, radio, magazines, to very much digitally focused. And suddenly we'd get the same 1,000 customers through the door every Friday night, but our ad spend went from, thousands a week on, say Kiss FM to hundreds and less on social media. And then my local pub sort of found out what I was doing. I started helping them a little bit, and kind of slowly things evolved. And I realized, actually I've got a real passion for digital marketing. And also I was brought up actually in a hotel. My parents used to own a hotel. So from a very young age, I was kind of surrounded by hospitality and that world. So I'd always had a passion for that as well. And it ended up the two just sort of very nicely married together. And then I realized that actually, there's so many businesses out there that need help. There's a huge opportunity with digital marketing, with social media. And also, the nightclub sort of period had run its course for me. I'd enjoyed it while it lasted, but it was sort of time for something more long-term. And so sort of slowly built out ReallySocial on the side, but I was still kind of finishing doing some nightclub events. And then this became, my full-time job.
And, I think about business owners that I've coached before and business owners that I've met in and around Peterborough, and often people have talked about a niche. So I'm just curious about what impact you think choosing that niche had, because so many agencies and website developers and all that sort of stuff have a very broad view of the world. I can do work for anybody, but you've closed that down into a little niche. What kind of impact has that had?
Yeah, so do you know what? Interestingly, when I first started ReallySocial, we didn't have a niche, and we did all sorts, car garages, hairdressers, any business I could get at the time as kind of a new business. And I was going to, your typical, networking type events where obviously you're meeting all sorts of businesses. We ended up really specializing in hospitality for two reasons. One, you can generally get a business quite quick results, as in, it's fairly easy to convince you to go and try a new coffee shop and go and have a coffee tomorrow. But to get you purchase a car tomorrow is obviously much more of an informed and kind of longer sales process. And even the same with a hairdresser, it's people, often go to the same hairdresser. So that's, a different, sales process. So we could get clients quick results with restaurants, which I liked, particularly, obviously at the moment with cost of inflation, back of the Ukraine war, COVID, everything, money for people and businesses is tight. So they want to see a return on investment. So being able to demonstrate that is key for us in terms of adding value. But the other big one, and there's sort of the one that I suppose I didn't expect so much when we started ReallySocial, was more around systemizing the business and staff. And what we found in the early days was we ended up having so many different businesses that were completely different. You know, how you market a car garage is completely different to how you market a hairdresser to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And to be able to do a good job for all those clients, you would have had to have such specialist, highly skilled staff on such high salaries that it really wouldn't have been viable to charge that price point to clients, certainly to make any money on it. And so specializing in a niche was a way that we could train our staff to be absolute experts in this one area, know the industry inside out, know everything that doesn't work, what we've done with previous clients, and allow us to deliver a very, very good service for the price point that we wanted to. So that was kind of almost a natural evolution, but that actually ended up becoming quite a key part of the Really Social journey in terms of, without having those systems in place, there's no way we could have scaled to, where we are, doing all those kinds of different businesses. I think it would have to be a very, very different business for that to work.
That's a good lesson. It's a good lesson for a lot of businesses that you don't necessarily have to serve everybody. Could you pick an environment in which you became the known specialist for one particular type of business? So yeah, really, really good advice. I'm wondering, once you've made that decision, to start the agency, and you've got yourself into that position in the first 2 years where you're servicing all those different customers, what were the key challenges for you, and what I imagine back then would have been a reasonably small team?
Many challenges constantly.
Yeah.
I think it stems. I mean, the service evolved a lot as well over that time period. I mean, originally social media was fairly new, kind of 8-9 years ago. A lot of businesses were just starting to really use it heavily. So a lot of what businesses want was very much just content led. And that's what we focused on. Whereas as things evolved, it became more around, paid ad campaigns, targeting, sort of more specific revenue metrics, I suppose. But the biggest challenge was really knowing the businesses and coming up with a campaign that works. And at the end of the day, marketing, they're paying for, creative ideas and results. And that was, very challenging when you've got 50 different businesses that are all completely different and haven't really got anything in common.
I bet. So many challenges, and matching yourself up to the customers particularly well. But was there a time when you then started to think, right, I need to build a team around me? When did that first start?
So that happened fairly quickly, actually. I mean, my background from sort of my previous experience in recruitment is more on the sales side of things. I love sales. I love going out meeting clients and sort of how our service can help them. That's my forte. So actually the first hire that I had was on the creative side, so somebody to help with the content and that side of things. So then I could still focus on the selling and that side of things. And when I first started, there was one point when I think I had 30 clients. And I was doing everything, the Facebook, the content, the entire service, and I'm not sleeping very much at the time. So that was one of the first hires. Although then, interestingly, we ended up hiring more salespeople, and I think, but because that was the area I knew, it was my skill set. I worked in recruitment. That was hiring people, so I kind of knew the sales profile. And I knew I could train those people to do a good job. But that did actually mean that, interestingly, I was personally selling less then, because we had salespeople where I think in hindsight, I would sell myself for a bit longer, because, as a business owner, you're obviously naturally passionate about it and people buy into it, but also that is my core skill set, and probably would have hired more creative people and less salespeople, probably, and sort of done it slightly the other way around if I would do it again.
But how big's the team now?
So we've got 18 people in the company at the moment, across. So we've got a software team, and then account managers, ad specialists, and then the creative team, which is kind of graphic designers, content writers.
And so now at the head of the business, and you're bringing people into the team. I mean, what are the key factors you think to getting that team working really well together?
Yeah, and I'd like to think we've got a very good kind of supportive culture, but also quite an ambitious culture in the company. Um, but I think the biggest learning point for me was certainly more recently, kind of you always want to hire the very best people you can get.
Yeah.
Obviously, as a small business, you often can't afford the best people, so you're hiring, junior staff or grads or whatever it might be, and kind of having to train them because that's the salary level that you can make work as a small business.
Yeah.
But so certainly trying to get the very best person you can get with that particular skill set. And for me, trying to get someone that was better than me. I mean, recently we've made a few hires where staff have got expertise that I haven't got. And you know what? It's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
There was quite a long period where I probably felt that I knew more than some of the other staff in the business, which necessarily where I wanted it to be, but just was the setup of it at the time.
Yeah.
Certainly hiring the very best people that you can get in terms of skill set and expertise in a particular area has made a big difference.
So skills are really important, but sometimes my clients and I have a sort of a conversation around, if you bring somebody into the business who's got an absolutely fantastic attitude, then you can train them with certain sorts of skills. I know yours is a highly technical business, so that might not be as pure as in some other businesses. But what do you look for in employees when it comes to attitude?
No, I think you're completely right. I think, especially in a small business, but we've only got 18 people. It's not big in the grand scale of the corporate world. I think cultural fit is absolutely essential. And if you don't have someone that glues and works well with all the different teams, that's going to cause more problems than having someone that's maybe not quite as well trained in a particular area.
Is that difficult to spot at interview, or do you have some kind of technique or methodology of looking at someone and talking to them for half an hour and thinking, well, I think you'd be a good fit in the team?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've 100% cracked it yet, but I think it's just trying to have as many conversations as you can with someone in the recruitment process, and certainly getting other members of the team involved in the recruitment process as well. So, I might do an initial stage interview, someone else will do a next stage, then maybe multiple people will do a final interview.
Yep.
So trying to kind of got as many eyes and ears as possible, but that's a hard one. It's just trying to, you've got your structured interview questions or key things that you might want to assess, but then it's kind of, you just want to have an informal conversation with them for 20 minutes and, what did they do, the weekend, where are they going on holiday, and just sort of try and get to know them a bit more and sort of, see if you have that, great rapport with them and they're naturally building a relationship and you're getting on well.
And so over the last 8 and a bit years, I imagine that your style as a leader has changed a little bit. How do you lead the company? What kind of style do you use when it comes to that?
That's a good point. Probably have to ask the team to honest more than me, but I think.
Tell me about James. What kind of leader is he? I'm
a fairly chilled leader, I'd say, which has its pros and its cons. I think when I ask somebody to do something, I just expect it's going to be done at the highest possible level, and I won't chase it up. I'll just expect it to be done. So I think I'm a very good leader if I've got great people below me, but I'm probably not as good a manager of really helping to coach someone and train them and support them and check stuff. I think that's not my skill set as much. We did some personality tests a while ago, and I forget exactly which one it was, but I came out as kind of the dreamer, as it I think it was called.
Right.
And I think that fits well. I come up with the product idea, I know what it needs to do, I know how we need to sell it, but the 10 steps below that of how we're actually going to execute it and do it, that's not my skill set as much. So I think one of the things I've realized is I need great people below me in certain parts of the business that are going to question things and challenge me and say, actually, have you thought about this, or what's the consequences of that if we do that? Because otherwise I'm just sort of 100 miles an hour thinking of the next thing that we need to do and not breaking it down necessarily.
Every business needs a visionary, right? Someone's got to be dreaming about what comes next, and it kind of prompts the question from me. You're in this space now, coming up to 9 years with ReallySocial, and what is going to come next? Where are you taking the business in the next few years?
Yeah, so our goal, I mean, it's really exciting. Obviously, you've seen all the updates with AI at the moment, and that's obviously
Yeah,
the hot topic currently. But
yeah,
our service is still quite manual. We've automated a lot, but there is still a lot of things that have to be done by
mm,
hand.
mm,
So our end goal is to really streamline the content creation, the marketing element of it, so that a restaurant owner can literally pick up the app and their entire month's marketing is done for them based
right,
on what events they've got, what specials they've got, seasonal trends, everything, just sort of a completely automated service that markets
brilliant.
their restaurant without them having to do anything. That's
Yeah,
our end goal, really.
yeah.
Um,
And,
so every
does that
month we're doing.
mean does that mean that Really Social has to get bigger? Are you planning to expand it in terms of the number of people in that? How big could it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the market opportunity, I mean, how many restaurants are in the UK? I mean, literally tens of thousands.
Mm,
And if you look at platforms like, say, Just Eat, Uber Deliveroo, I mean, Just Eat's got over 30,000 restaurants on its platform alone. Um, there isn't really another service in the UK that does exactly what we do in terms of the restaurant marketing app, the setup, the price point, the sort of the focus of the service.
mm,
So I think we've got a huge market opportunity in front of us. And we certainly, will be expanding quite heavily over the next 6 months. We've gone fairly steadily the last few years, coming sort of off the back of COVID and really in
yeah.
investing in the app and finalizing the product, where we're kind of just at the point now where the product is really working well. We're getting very good feedback.
Mm,
We're in the process of launching some big partnerships with some online ordering platforms, because our service complements them perfectly in terms of lots of restaurants want to get direct orders, so they're not paying commission on them.
mm-hmm.
But the challenge they've got is they're not driving customers, driving traffic to those websites.
Yeah.
So we're a great fit for an online ordering platform, to drive traffic to their restaurants. So there's a lot of opportunity there for us. So yeah, we are hoping to expand, very significantly over the next 6 months, and at the same time add even more value to restaurants by offering
Mm.
faster, more in-depth, more accurate services that are going to ultimately help them drive revenue.
Mm. I mean, what's your view on vision setting like that? That you've painted a very rich picture there of what's happening to the company, but as the leader of the business, how do you convey that to the team? Do they all, if I was to come into Really Social and say, okay, what's happening in the next 6 months, would they know that? Do you convey that to them with that same passion?
Yeah, I would hope that they would. And it was kind of a standing joke in the company that I always love to draw pictures on my iPad and then put them on company presentations. There was one that we did recently where it was basically a bridge and a very deep sea between, and then a kind of a mountain on the other side. And it was explaining that we've
Yeah,
nearly crossed the bridge and then we're about to climb the mountain. And there's a whole sort of
brilliant.
all these analogies of different stages of our growth and what we needed to achieve at different levels.
Yeah.
Um, we tried to be very, very transparent with the team, and there was periods where we probably weren't as transparent as maybe we could have been. But I think to not to scare people, sometimes if you've got
Yeah.
very big goals, very big challenges, you sort of might be more reserved. But actually, recently I've decided to be 100% transparent about everything. So this is what we want to achieve. This is the challenges we're going to have. This is the risks. This is what we need to do. And actually, I think everyone's really bought into that and actually sort of almost rallied behind it to make sure we do hit those goals and achieve what we want to achieve. So
Yeah.
yeah, try and be as transparent as you can, really.
That's a good piece of advice, and I think it's an interesting question to follow on with. Is that we hear that the younger employees in the marketplace they want more from their company than just the fact that they come to work and contribute to the profit making, and that there's a sense that they need to understand the wider purpose and maybe look at some other things alongside just the work. Is that your experience? How are the youngsters in your team sort of questioning that?
Yeah, definitely agree. I think hit the nail on the head there that the expectations of graduates and those sort of younger generations coming into work have changed a lot. Everyone wants, they want to be CEO tomorrow. They want everything instantly. They want 100
Yeah.
grand a year, and everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
And just going to work for a salary is probably not enough anymore. I don't think it's,
Yeah.
the younger generations, I mean, myself probably included that to a point, is maybe more experience led than materialistic. Obviously, we do like nice things, but
Yeah,
as
yeah,
you gave a younger person two options. Do you want to go and have a trip and have an amazing experience, or do you want this bag? They would probably choose the trip. And I think
yeah,
making sure that a business that can facilitate sort of, I suppose, a more meaningful work and more enjoyable work is really important, rather than just turning up and doing a mundane task
yeah,
every day.
yeah. I mean, that's a
I
very
think
good lesson for any business owner who's got, younger employees coming in who've got those kind of expectations, that you don't want to pander to them unnecessarily, but there are things that you can do that are just slightly different from the traditional, if you like, to maintain levels of motivation and engagement.
definitely. And I think as a business, stuff where maybe it's a challenge as a small company, but where we've not done perhaps as good a job as we could have historically is around personal development, staff training, and people have left previously. And I think probably one of the recurring themes was that there wasn't enough, not necessarily progression, because people's roles did progress, but maybe there wasn't enough support in the new role, or they weren't as equipped, or professional courses, that kind of thing. Because I think that is it always has been, but it's particularly important to the generations that are coming through now. They want to get better, they want to progress, and as a business, you need to make sure you're supporting that.
Mm, mm. Lots of challenges there. I mean, team is always one of the hardest things, as businesses expand, for people to really get to grips with. I want to sort of take you back again to that starting point, but in a slightly different way this time. I'm thinking about James now with nearly 9 years of experience under his belt. If you were to go back to the beginning and meet the younger James, knowing what you know today, what would you say to the younger James? What advice would you give?
Wow, that's a very good question. I mean, if I could wind back 9 years, there's a lot of things I'd do very differently. But
Yeah.
I think as a generally as a business, because of my sales focus and sales background, I was always focused on driving revenue, driving clients, driving growth, and that was kind of my focus area.
Mm.
Whereas actually sometimes during sort of the peaks and troughs of the growth journey, I think if we'd have focused more on, I call it the product, but service, results, that side of things, I think it probably would have actually led to maybe more growth, because you'd have got even more referrals and even more good recommendations, rather than trying to push new revenue, sort of force it, but actually focus really on delivering a very high quality service the entire time. I think I would have probably put more money in some of those teams and less in sales.
That's great advice. That's a really, really good piece of advice. Yeah.
Not that we did that badly, but just
No.
I think that's certainly an
Okay.
area that would led to even more growth.
And just a final question for you personally. When I often see clients changing as their business grows, and then they themselves change as humans. As you look forward for the next sort of 4 or 5 years in Really Social, where do you think your focus on personal development should be?
As in as a business leader.
Yeah, as an individual, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm sort of actively conscious of, in terms of, I see, Ben Francis from Gymshark. He's obviously done phenomenally well growing that business, and he actually he stepped back from being the CEO for, I think it was about 2 or 3 years, and focused on working in a different part of the business during that time. So we understood every part of the business inside out. And then, what was it, 6 months ago, then came back into the CEO position, thinking he was now well equipped to actually lead the company. I think as we become more professional, I suppose, as we have more teams and more specific skill sets in different teams, I am conscious that I need to up my skills to make sure that I'm the right leader for the business moving forward. I mean, a stupid example that we wouldn't always used to have minutes in meetings. Previously, they'd just be kind of sit around, have a coffee. They're fairly informal. Whereas now it's right. What's the agenda? What's the action points? And it's stuff like that. But unless I think if you've worked your way up through a larger company, you've probably been exposed to a lot of that and had experience with it. So it's maybe by the time you then set up your own business, if you say, 40 or whatever, then you've done it. But
Mm.
for those people that are maybe younger in their career, going down their own path, then it is often hard to, where do you look to get that advice, or what should you even be doing? Because if you don't know, you don't know. So it's kind of, you've got to actively put yourself out there, whether that's coaching or courses, or even watching videos on YouTube. But make sure you are progressing yourself professionally. I'm very conscious of that.
My coach says to me, and I've got a couple of coaches, and one of them, he says to me, so there's no way on earth that you could possibly know what you don't know. Your blind spots are called blind spots for a reason, and therefore there is something to be said for really exploring each part of your personality or your approach to leadership in order to uncover those blind spots. And when someone else says, well, you probably didn't know this, but this is what you do, and there's a better way to do it, then I think that's been really helpful for me. So we're all on a growth path, aren't we, really?
Definitely. I don't think, you can be self-reflective to a point, but as you say, sometimes you do need that third party to actually get you to sit back and look and, have you thought about this perspective, or did you realize you do this? And then, wow, okay.
One of the best parts of my fortnightly meeting with my coach is where he does this. He goes, and then you're about to get your ass kicked, or a blind spot.
And as soon as he does that, the penny probably drops, and you probably realize why. But it takes that for it to happen, doesn't it?
Anyway, no, it's good. It's good. So just to finish up then, James, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, but time is against us, I'm afraid. But anything else going on in Really Social that you want to share with the viewers and listeners, just to give us a feeling for what's coming next in the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I say, we've had a fairly steady few years, sort of focusing on the software product, getting it to this point, and now it should really be a very exciting journey ahead. We've got lots of potential hires in the pipeline at the moment. We've got some big partnership campaigns that actually went live today, one of them.
Right.
So we are expecting our client numbers to increase quite significantly over the next kind of 2 to 3 months, really. So that's going to come with loads of headaches and loads of stress, but loads of excitement as well. And it's going to, for me personally, it's going to allow us to hire even some more senior people into other key roles in the business, which will then further increase of our results and our service to clients. So it should be very, very exciting next few months.
Sounds very exciting. I say that sometimes growth isn't mandatory, but if it's happening and you love what is happening to the company as it happens, then that is a really good and exciting thing to be part of. Good luck with all of that, James. I mean, it's fascinating. Sounds like you are really, steering the company positively, and you've shared some really, really good lessons today for anybody else who's in business. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for joining me on the Business Spotlight.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for having me.